talk about for the next hour is a few things. I'm first of all going to give a very brief introduction to Disciplined Agile Delivery on the off chance that you were not able to join us previously for our introduction to DAD. And then I'm going to get into what I see as the scaling factors. This reflects some work that I did at IBM a couple of years ago. We've extended it recently. And the idea is I want to put scaling into context and to help you understand the true extent of the situation that we face. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss three of the scaling factors. There's more than just three, but I'm going to in this presentation I'm going to discuss probably the three more obvious ones to give you a flavor for what's going on. I'm also going to share some industry data with you. So this presentation is all about practice. I'm not going to share any theory at all. So all this stuff works in practice. Now, having said that, just because some organizations are in fact succeeding at this does not automatically mean that you will. So you may need some help, you may need some coaching, you may need some mentoring. So anyways, but I will share some industry data showing that this stuff does in fact work in practice, at least for some people. Okay, so moving on. What is Disciplined Agile Delivery? So Disciplined Agile Delivery is actually what we call a process decision framework. And the basic idea, this springs from the observation that project teams need to make important process decisions throughout the life cycle. The unfortunate problem is that most people don't have the process expertise, and they never will have it. They have more interesting things to do than gaining it. But they still need to make these decisions. So in Disciplined Agile Delivery, what we do is we take what's called a goals-based approach, and I'm going to walk you through a detailed example of what this means in a few minutes. But the idea is that there are certain goals that you need to address throughout a project, and there's different ways that you can address those goals depending on the situation that you find yourself in. And this is an absolutely critical observation when it comes to scaling Agile, because one of the major challenges that we find in the industry right now is that although there's a lot of great and wonderful advice about how to work in an agile manner out there, a lot of it really is geared for these simpler situations where you're a small co-located team developing something fairly straightforward. And if you're in that situation, then great. The mainstream agile advice is going to do you very well. But what if you're not in that situation? That's where the scaling factors come into play. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So anyways, what happened when I was the chief methodologist for IT at IBM Rational, I got to work with customers all around the world who were trying to adopt and scale Agile. And I would always get brought into some of the more interesting situations. And as a result, I got to see what people were making work, what they were not making work in a very wide range of situations across the world. And I started seeing some very obvious and clear patterns in what was working, and sometimes in what was not working as well, of course. But the end result of that was myself and a few of my colleagues, we started talking about this, and we started saying, hey, we're seeing these same patterns, and yet all these organizations are really struggling. They're spending a lot of money and a lot of time figuring this Agile stuff out, particularly when they have to start scaling it. So as a result, the short story is that we put this process decision framework in place. So there's several key characteristics of DAD. The important ones, particularly for this presentation, are the fact that it's a hybrid Agile method. I'll talk about that in a second, and it's goal-driven. So, and it has a full delivery life cycle. And these, although all this stuff is obviously important in this characteristics list, these are probably the most important characteristics from a scaling point of view.